excited about this one. Came back from Texas, turkey opening season about 3 weeks ago, down there shooting Rios, and we started doing this just for giggles. Always wondering what we want to do with these birds, and typically just brace them out, but made some turkey biltong out of that Rio we got down there, and man, it turned out so good. Where we figured, well, on Tennessee season opened last weekend, and kind of jinxed ourselves. First 2 days out. Seeing the camera, they were a bit camera shy, I guess. But got ourselves a good one this morning. Gonna turn it into some turkey biltong again. So stay tuned. This is gonna be fun. We never really experimented with turkey biltong until this year. So shooting a gobbler, I mean, it's an older bird, and like with any other animal, the older they get, the tougher the meat gets. So not only is the meat gonna be tough, but it's also, what can you really do with it to turn it into something really good? But what we're gonna do today is just go back to our roots and just go back to the old Viking days of air drying meat. It's gonna be an old school salt cured, air dried method. What we're gonna do. So we're just gonna use the breast for those. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and get these breasts out. I like to keep it as clean as possible, so I get as much of this skin away from the meat. Get these breasts out as clean as we can. The further you can get the skin away from this meat, the less chance you have of feathers and a bunch of dirt getting on it. Basically what you're going to do is just cut on both sides of that breastbone. And just kind of follow that bone. Don't try to cut deep, that bone turns as you get in there, and you don't want to cut through that tender. Taking my time here because I really want to save as much as I can. That's the crop right there. You don't want to get into all that, so stay away from cutting that. We got turkey breast, and here we have our tender right there, still intact. Alright, breast number 2. Of course, our delicious turkey tender. Alright, we'll get this back to the facility, and we're gonna turn this into some turkey biltong. So what we're gonna do, what I started off with is I took out our tenders, our turkey tenders, and then of course we have the rest of our breast meat here. So with air drying meats, the thicker you cut it, the longer it takes to air dry. In the case of any kind of bird or fowl meat, in this case turkey, you want to dry that as quickly as you possibly can. Bacteria grows on fowl meat a lot quicker than what it does on red meat or beef, like you see behind me. This beef, for instance, takes about 6 days to dry. This we need to dry within a day. We're going to shoot for 24 hours. So we're not going to do thick slices like this. We're going to do thin slices. We're going to cure it with some vinegar. It's going to be our inhibitor. And we're just going to use the Bearded Butcher bold flavor seasoning for this guy here, that you guys can do this at home as well. So we did the calculations on how much sodium is in this bold seasoning, and we're going to use that sodium content to calculate how much of this spice per pound of meat we're going to need to make this. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to cut these into little, about a 1/2 inch strips, and we want to cut these with the grain, because once we're done drying this, it's a lot easier to eat. So take these little tenders, cut them about 1/2 inch strips, just like that. And biltong or air drying meats is especially a South African tradition, where our forefathers used to make this way back in the day. There wasn't any artificial preservatives to use. Cooking wasn't always available, so we basically went out hunting, take meat, salted it, use some of the natural herbs, like coriander is a very good one to use. We're going to use some coriander in this recipe today as well. Actually turns out that coriander has got some antimicrobial factors to it as well, so it helps with food safety. It's a beautiful bird. Also, if you do get a turkey, make sure you don't have any pellets in that breast. Last thing you want to do is bite into a shotgun pellet. Alright, so we have our meat all cut up. And again, the way I did it 1/4 inch is just that we have a very quick drying process. We want to dry this within 24 hours. It takes about 24 hours per 1/4 inch to dry on this meat. So we want it nice and dry for this sample. And then gonna use some vinegar, some Louisiana hot sauce, vinegar based as our inhibitor, because we want to get our pH right for drying meat. And then, like I said, we measured out the Bearded Butcher Bold seasoning. That's what we're going to use today for our seasoning. And then we have the salt content worked out to know exactly how much seasoning per pound of meat we're going to need. And so 3 things on drying meat. You need airflow, you need temperature, and you need to regulate the humidity. So you want a very dry kind of climate. Humidity is your enemy. You want good airflow on there, and you want to be at the right temperature. Again, this product isn't cooked. We dry it about room temperature, about 72 degrees Fahrenheit is what we're going to dry this in. And basically, the airflow is just to remove all that moisture from the air without cooking it. All right, well, let's get started. We're going to weigh out our spices. Got ourselves a little scale here. And I'm going to use the Bearded Butcher Bold per 4 pounds of meat. On the Bearded Butcher Bold Spice, you want to use between about 15 to 17 grams of the bold spice per pound of meat. This is 0 sugar in there. For those guys that want something a bit sweeter, you can add some sugar into this recipe. I personally love coriander. So coriander that's what makes biltong. So I'm going to add some coriander into this recipe as well. Coriander, you do it about 2 grams per pound of meat on the coriander. On your vinegar, 1/2 cup per 10 pounds of meat. Like I said, on the Bearded Butcher Bold Spice, you need about between 15 and 17 grams per pound of meat. You can get it a little bit saltier if you want it, up to salt, but that's more or less the safe place to start to be curing this meat with. So we have 4 pounds of meat here, so I'm going to do about 65 grams of Bearded Butcher Bold. Then on the coriander, about 8 grams. We'd like to toast our coriander. This is organic whole coriander seed right there. See how nice and toasty they are. That brings out a lot of flavor. If you toast your coriander, and you can look up on how to do that online, there's several ways you can do it. You can roast it in the oven, you can roast it over a fire, but it brings out a lot more flavor. And what you want to do when you grind coriander is not do a very fine grind. You basically just want to crack this coriander. Once you fine grind it, it really changes the flavor a lot. So we use a little hand mill, and we just want to crack these little guys. Man, if that camera can smell right now. But that's kind of what you're looking for. You don't want to fine grind on this. You just want to crack these guys open. And we want 8 grams of coriander. Okay, and again, coriander doesn't just give it that biltong flavor. There's also got some antimicrobial properties in this to help preserve this meat and treat any kind of bacteria that would have been on there. So I like to just spread it out a little bit. It's getting all sticky. Just want to use about a 1/4 cup with this calculations. We're going to use about a 1/4 cup of this Louisiana hot sauce. So it doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't really make the meat sour if you have a lot in there. It will eventually, obviously, but it's pretty safe to use. And why we did Louisiana hot sauce, we actually experimented with this down in Texas when we did this turkey biltong for the first time. Louisiana hot sauce really pulls out a lot of that gaminess when it comes to meat. We do a lot of deer meat. We'll marinate in a bit of Louisiana hot sauce, and especially with bird meat, if you don't like that foul burnt taste. Then you really want to use some of this hot sauce, and it doesn't really make it hot. It adds a little bit of heat to it, but it's not gonna burn. Like I said, this is not much. This is just to cover the surface. Mix our coriander into this bold blend seasoning. I'm just gonna kind of cover it in there, throw it over. You can layer this, you can do this in layers. Typically when we make biltong, whole slab biltong like what we have back here, and you do those more into layers. But in this case here, small as these little pieces are, we're just gonna mix them like that. And the salt content is gonna pull moisture out of this meat. and make its own brine. So we're gonna let this cure for about 24 hours. We're gonna keep mixing it just a few times throughout the day. And once all that moisture is out, we'll keep mixing it just to get an even distribution of all the spices. Man, it smells amazing. We've been making a bearded butcher biltong for this bearded butcher guys. Shout out to them. They came up with this spice recipe, and we started making an actual beef biltong out of it, and it's just been a hit. Well, that's all it takes. We're just gonna spread this out, cover it, back into the refrigerator, and we're gonna let this be for about 24 hours. All right, 24 hours later, and our meat is ready to hang. These are gonna be dry within about 24 hours. We have customized dry rooms that we use to dry product in, but it's kind of like this here in our studio. I wanted to show you guys kind of the idea of how it's getting hung. So we have little plastic S hooks that we use to hang these with. You just stick them in one end, and if you want to put a strand of wire, or if you don't have any S hooks, you can use just some wire. You can bend yourself little S hooks. Paper clips, those big jumbo paper clips actually work pretty well. But you just want to hook them up. You want to get them hung, and then the only thing you need from there is going to be airflow. And you want to make sure your humidity, if you're in a house here in the US, it's pretty easy. Back in South Africa, it wasn't that easy. We typically just hang it outside because we have dry air over there. But over here, there's a lot of humidity, especially in Tennessee. But in the houses itself here in the US, your HVAC is a temperature controlled environment, typically a low humidity environment inside houses as well. But yes, if you dry this at room temperature, about 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and if you have a humidity meter, you want to be below 55% humidity in the air. Other than that, you just need airflow. So basically just hang these little guys up and give them some air, and they'll be ready in 24 hours. We want to dry them to a water activity of at least 0.85. We're going to go a bit drier with these ones since they're fowl or a turkey meat. We want to go a little bit drier on these. We're probably going to go around 0.8 on your water activity. So you're going to lose about 2/3 of your weight. So we started off with 4 pounds. This is going to be packed with protein once all this is done. 0 sugar. This is a clean label, healthy, packed with protein product. If you have a piece that overlaps like that, that may mold within there because it doesn't get enough air through it. So make sure you have these pieces nice and open before you hang them up. That's pretty much what we ended up with. 4 pounds of turkey meat ready to go into our dryer. Okay, we've taken these guys off this morning. We got our turkey biltong, naturally air dried. We just felt these this morning. They felt good and dry. They've been hanging for about 24 hours. What we're going to do is, how we're going to test this is we're just going to do the weight. So if we lost at least half of our total weight from when we started, we know that we're at least at a water activity of 0.85, which would be a ready-to-eat shelf-stable product. So I'm going to go ahead and take these little hooks out, and we're going to get a weight. We got about 1.1 pound of product out with the 4 pounds that we started originally. So we lost about 70% of our weight, of our total weight. So this is at a water activity of probably around 0.80, 0.78 maybe, if I was to guesstimate, which is by far a shelf-stable, ready-to-eat product. So this is really good stuff. Everything worked out well. Like I said, this took us about 24 hours to dry, and here the results are in. I'm excited about this one. Let's give it a shot. As you can see there, it's not totally dry. I mean, it's not going to break on you. It's kind of like a jerky. If you were to make jerky in a dehydrator, you're probably going to have more or less the same consistency, except for this has not been cooked. This has just been naturally air drying. So kind of a rip and tear. That's what we were going for. On beef, for example, like the ones we have out here, just an idea, we lose about half of our weight on these to give us kind of like that medium rare steak. But with the turkey, we wanted to go a bit drier. No. Guys, I encourage you, every turkey hunter out there, we shot this Tennessee Eastern Longbeard yesterday, and decided to make this turkey biltong out of it. It's phenomenal. It is really good. I've made millions of pounds of biltong before in my life, Never done it with wild turkey. This is a first, but definitely one for the records. I encourage people, go out there, harvest animals, use game meat outside. It's free, guys. Go out there, get a turkey. When it's hunting season, deer season coming up, we'll be doing more of these videos. But it's fun, it's easy to do, all natural, clean. We encourage you to go ahead and do this at home.